Myanmar, once brimming with promise and hailed as a rising star in Southeast Asia, a beacon of potential in the region, now faces a multifaceted economic crisis. This crisis threatens to cruelly erase a decade of hard-won progress and development. The World Bank issues a stark warning: nearly half the population teeters on the brink, poised to fall into poverty. This isn't merely an economic downturn, it's a looming human crisis with far-reaching consequences. Political turmoil, erupting since 2021, has shattered the fragile threads of investor confidence and crippled basic governance structures, leaving a void of stability. These internal struggles are compounding already challenging global shocks, such as rampant inflation and crippling supply chain disruptions, creating a perfect storm of economic woes. The result is a perfect storm, a vicious cycle where political instability deepens economic decay, and conversely, economic hardship fuels further instability, trapping the nation in a downward spiral. The once vibrant dream of Myanmar emerging as a new Asian tiger, a symbol of economic dynamism, has sadly faded into the background. That dream has been replaced by the harsh realities and urgent questions of basic survival for millions of ordinary citizens. This is not a typical recession that can be easily addressed with conventional measures. Foundational problems are deeply entrenched, touching every facet of the economy, from the credibility of the central bank to the very ability of farmers to plant and harvest their crops. Trust in the stability of the currency, the fairness of the law, and the promise of a brighter future has been severely eroded, and rebuilding that trust, fostering a sense of stability and hope, will undoubtedly take a generation of dedicated effort. In this analysis, we'll delve into 5 critical pillars that underpin this complex crisis: stagnating growth, a standstill in economic progress, hidden unemployment, a silent crisis masked by informal labor, crippling inflation, a relentless surge in prices that erodes purchasing power, ballooning debt, a rapidly escalating burden that threatens financial stability, and a collapse in productive capacity, a decline in the nation's ability to generate goods and services. For Myanmar, the road ahead is shrouded in uncertainty, a challenging path filled with obstacles and unknowns, but honest and unflinching assessment of these challenges is the crucial first step toward charting a course for recovery and rebuilding a more prosperous future. Myanmar's GDP growth has plummeted from 6 to 7% to barely 1%, not enough to create jobs or fight poverty. This isn't a normal slowdown, it's a structural collapse driven by lost investment, failing sectors, and paralyzed business activity. Hidden unemployment is rampant. Millions have lost stable jobs and now scrape by in informal work or subsistence farming. Skilled workers are wasted, and a generation faces a future with few prospects, fueling social instability. Inflation, topping 20%, has destroyed purchasing power. The kyat's collapse makes essentials like food and medicine unaffordable. Families cut back on food, education, and healthcare just to survive. For businesses, inflation and currency chaos make planning impossible, stalling any hope of recovery. Meanwhile, government debt soars as borrowing replaces lost revenue, diverting funds from vital services. Agriculture and manufacturing are crippled by high costs, power outages, and supply chain breakdowns. No financial fix can substitute for a productive economy that's been hollowed out. The numbers reveal the scale of Myanmar's collapse. GDP growth, once over 6%, plunged by 18% after 2021 and has barely recovered. Current growth lags behind population growth, meaning the average citizen is getting poorer. Over 1.5 million jobs vanished after 2021, with a surge in informal low-wage work. Inflation soared from single digits to over 25%, and for essentials, it's likely closer to 40%. Public debt has ballooned from 38% to 65% of GDP, much of it fueled by money printing, which drives further inflation. Exports have faltered, foreign reserves are critically low, and the kyat has lost over 70% of its value since 2020. The official exchange rate is meaningless. The black market tells the real story. This currency collapse drives inflation, blocks trade, and signals a total loss of confidence. For investors, currency instability is the most immediate and unavoidable risk. Every indicator points to a deepening emergency. The economic crisis gripping Myanmar is both deeply personal and profoundly systemic. It's not just about numbers on a spreadsheet, it's about the lives and livelihoods of everyday people. Take, for instance, Yangon's Hlang Tharyar industrial zone, once a bustling hub of activity. Garment factories there once thrived, a testament to Myanmar's growing manufacturing sector. They provided jobs and opportunities for countless families. But now, these factories face crippling power outages, disrupting production and threatening their very survival. They're also grappling with lost orders, as international buyers become increasingly wary of the instability. This, in turn, has led to mass layoffs, leaving thousands of workers without a source of income. The human cost is immense. Families who had moved to the city in search of opportunity and a better life are now being forced to return to their villages, often facing even greater poverty than before. Their dreams have been shattered. The crisis extends far beyond the cities. In Shan State, for example, farmers are struggling to survive, unable to afford essential inputs like fertilizer or the cost of transporting their goods to market. As a result, valuable crops rot in the fields, a heartbreaking waste of resources and labor. This agricultural collapse is directly contributing to food shortages and dramatic price spikes in cities, making it increasingly difficult for ordinary people to feed their families. The once booming construction sector in Yangon has also ground to a halt. Construction projects are being abandoned midway, leaving skeletal structures as grim reminders of lost potential and countless construction workers unemployed. The impact is felt throughout related industries, from cement production all the way to furniture manufacturing. These sectors are now in freefall, struggling to stay afloat. These failures starkly illustrate how the breakdown of essential systems like banking, transport infrastructure, and the legal framework sends ripples of disruption and instability through every sector of the economy. The problems are not isolated incidents, they're interconnected and systemic, a complex web of challenges. This crisis is affecting every region of Myanmar and virtually every industry, leaving no one untouched. In this environment, even the most meticulously crafted business plan can be easily derailed by factors that are simply beyond anyone's control, highlighting the extreme volatility of the situation. For investors, understanding the nature and scope of this systemic risk is absolutely crucial for making informed decisions. The collapse of even a single sector inevitably cascades into others, creating a domino effect that amplifies the overall economic damage. This interconnectedness is what is deepening the crisis and making it so difficult to resolve. The very foundations of Myanmar's economic infrastructure are fracturing at every level, threatening a complete systemic failure. The risks are pervasive and everywhere you look, and tragically, no one in Myanmar is immune to the devastating consequences of this crisis. Myanmar's economic woes, slow growth, unemployment, inflation, debt, and production decline are all linked by a crisis of governance. Political instability since 2021 shattered trust in government, currency, and law. The withdrawal of foreign investment led to a shortage of hard currency, forcing the government to print money, which fueled hyperinflation and currency collapse. A weak kyat makes imports expensive, crippling industries and driving production down. As factories and farms falter, unemployment rises, shrinking the tax base and forcing more borrowing and money printing, a vicious cycle. Instability pushes people toward illicit economies or conflict, deepening the crisis. For investors, every decision is shaped by this interconnected web of risk. No economic fix is possible without restoring governance and institutional trust. The path to economic stability in Myanmar is fraught with challenges, but amidst the difficulties there is a glimmer of hope. However, this hope hinges on the implementation of tough, carefully sequenced reforms. These reforms must be comprehensive and address the root causes of the current economic instability. It's a complex undertaking that requires careful planning and execution. First and foremost, the central bank must take decisive action and stop printing money. This practice has fueled inflation and eroded the value of the kyat. The central bank needs to restore some independence to effectively stabilize the kyat and curb the runaway inflation that is crippling the economy. This will require difficult decisions and a commitment to sound monetary policy. This might be painful in the short term, leading to some economic contraction, but it is a necessary step to build a foundation for long-term sustainable growth. Sometimes short-term sacrifices are essential for long-term gains. Supporting agriculture is absolutely critical to Myanmar's economic recovery. The agricultural sector is the backbone of the economy, employing a large portion of the population. It is essential to import affordable fertilizers to help farmers increase their yields and improve the quality of their crops. Improving rural infrastructure, including roads, irrigation systems, and storage facilities, is crucial for connecting farmers to markets and reducing post-harvest losses. Providing access to affordable credit to farmers will enable them to invest in their farms, purchase inputs, and improve their livelihoods. Boosting farm output can effectively control food inflation, ensuring food security for the population, and generate valuable foreign currency through exports. Simplifying and stabilizing regulations is absolutely essential to create a more predictable and business-friendly environment. Businesses need clear, consistent rules that are transparent and predictable, as well as a well-functioning banking system that can provide access to finance and facilitate transactions. While large-scale Western investment is currently unlikely due to the political situation, a predictable and stable environment could attract regional investors from neighboring countries and help local businesses survive and even thrive. Improving logistics infrastructure and cutting red tape and bureaucratic hurdles at ports and border crossings will significantly help facilitate trade and reduce transaction costs. Most importantly, tangible progress on governance is absolutely non-negotiable for any sustainable economic recovery. This includes strengthening the rule of law, ensuring fair and impartial enforcement of contracts, and actively fighting corruption at all levels of society. Establishing special economic zones with better governance and streamlined regulations could be a positive start, attracting investment and creating jobs. However, real and lasting recovery ultimately needs a more inclusive and stable political settlement that addresses the underlying causes of conflict and instability. Without these crucial steps, any economic recovery will be fragile, unsustainable, and ultimately short-lived, leaving Myanmar vulnerable to future crises. Myanmar's economy is trapped in a self-reinforcing crisis. Stagnant growth, hidden unemployment, runaway inflation, and collapsing production. The data and case studies show how national failure translates into daily hardship and systemic breakdown. The root cause is a collapse of governance and trust. For investors, the risks are extreme: currency collapse, regulatory chaos, and political instability. Only sectors like basic consumer goods or agriculture offer any resilience, and even these are fraught with danger. Yet Myanmar's long-term potential remains, if urgent reforms are made. Stabilizing the currency, supporting agriculture, streamlining trade, and rebuilding institutions are the only path forward. The future depends on restoring trust, the most valuable asset Myanmar has lost. For more data-driven insights and global market breakdowns, subscribe and turn on notifications. Stay informed, stay ahead. This is Economics FX, where clarity meets strategy. Until next time, trade smart.